Let's focus from one corporate to another, and the management of Satin Credit standing by to tell us about the kind of loan growth they're targeting, 30 to 35% for FY20, the release in the promoter pledge, as well as IndusInd Bank that recently allotted 2.58% stake, and more importantly, what the expectations are from the budget for the MFI and NBFC sector. Let's connect with H.P Singh, Chairman Managing Director at Satin Creditcare. Good to have you on board. Now, the company, can you just tell us how you've tied over the recent liquidity issues within the sector, the impact of growth that has had on your growth as well as your cost of funds?
So I think, we didn't have any liquidity pressure since September 18, when all this liquidity crisis broke on. We have been fortunate enough in getting liquidity from various banks as well as other financial institutions. So for us, I think, that liquidity crisis probably has not been there. So in terms of growth, just because there's been no pressure on the liquidity front, we have technically, been on path to grow at about 35% year on year. And we are on that path. Cost of funds remains stable. I think the rate cuts have still not been passed on to probably the borrower. So it remains stable, since the last 6 months or so.
Right. Can you just tell us that what is your funding mix? Does mutual fund contribute a lot to your business, or it's mostly banks and financial institutions?
So it's been mostly banks and financial institutions. Mutual funds, we have hardly any exposure from mutual funds to us. So that is also in one way we were able to tide over this crisis, because we didn't have any exposure from the mutual funds.
Can you talk about the asset side as well? What has been the growth over there? What is the growth that you're targeting? So if your liability side is taken care of, it's one of the best environments to grow right now.
In fact, yes, I think it's probably the best time, because there has been liquidity crunch for the NBFC sector as a whole. But for microfinance, I think that has probably not panned out to be. What we are targeting, since we do not have any pressure, I think we are going ahead with our growth pattern for this year for about 35%. And we remain focused on target for that. And I think we'll be able to do it both on the microfinance front as well as on the SME front also.
Right. Can you just talk to us about the slowdown, if any? Now, I'm talking about a consumer slowdown. Have you seen that in terms of demand that you get? You get a direct access to consumer. You directly go across to the last party where you go ahead and give your loan. Is there any slowdown in the business in the rural areas?
See, the slowdown technically does affect when you look at auto sales and all these car sales across over there. But if you look at the consumption pattern in terms of consumable goods as well as consumer goods, I don't think so there's been a slowdown in terms for that. That perhaps has also led to us that the demand remains fairly robust for even credit facilities for small SMEs also. There was a time during GST when I think, when GST was imposed, and there was technically a slowdown in the unorganized market and the small business at that point of time. But now I think, after the initial GST slowdown, but now it has really picked up. We don't see any kind of a slowdown in terms of the demand for our credit in the small businesses as such,
Okay, and how do you see your overall borrowing mix shaping up amid the rising funding cost environment?
Yeah, the rate cuts are not being getting passed on. That's the only worry which we have, and we've been asking our lenders to probably pass on the rate cuts which have been introduced by the Reserve Bank of India. But somehow I think because of the low offtake from the NBFC sector, or maybe they've not been able to really give out much loans to the NBFC sector, the rate cuts are not getting passed on. Correspondingly, we're not able to pass on these rate cuts to our ultimate borrowers. So I think, these rate cuts definitely have to be passed on. It's been stable for the last 6 months. There's not been any major reduction which has come in. And we hope that, that these rate cuts are passed on to us so that we are able to, pass on those rate cuts to our ultimate borrowers.
Just a last word. Do you believe that the next 12 months will be better for the NBFC sector with the sort of growth issues that have seen? Do you believe that overall NBFC sector will have better 12 months than the last 12 months?
See, I think, the differentiation would probably arise from the fact that I think, well-run and well-managed NBFC will definitely have no problems in terms of their growth. Definitely the smaller ones do still have some issues in terms of raising their liabilities, to fund their expansion and fund their growth. But my own sense is in the various sectors, which we belong to. So typically for microfinance, if we say it, there has been hardly any terms of liquidity crisis which is across over there. So it augurs well for in terms of our growth in the microfinance and the SME sector.
Fair enough. Well-managed NBFCs will not have problems in terms of growth. This has definitely been one pocket of a lot of pain. But going forward, at least from what we're gathering from the management of Satin Credit, we could see the companies that are well-run managing to hold out.